Welcome to J11's Life Mastery course. Coming up now is the second class, which is the first skills training session following the free orientation and introduction class. Over the next hour, Jay will teach you how to identify the traumatized patterns and coping mechanisms you developed in childhood that now hold you back from the richness of the life you desire and need. It will become very clear to you how to identify when your traumatized self or your old ineffective behavior patterns are in charge of your behavior and just how to begin changing this.
So welcome to the second class for Life Mastery Basics. As we know from the orientation, we started dealing with the question of the separation between the traumatized self and the real self, the authentic self. And that, life is simple. We live in that duality. One moment, something from the traumatized self may have authority often in our lives, and another time we may be making a decision from our really knowing selves, our calmer, aware, deeper selves. And the goal of this course is to make it very clear, very simple for you to identify when you're in your traumatized self and to give you tools to do it. So today's work is to give you the tools, the first big tool, which is to identify what in your traumatized self is still operational from your childhood trauma. What is still controlling you day to day? What are the reactive patterns that you have not been healed in you that will have authority over some of your decisions, authority over your reactions to life, the situations that come up? And then we can move on to the later classes when we talk about how to heal those. But we got to know exactly what you're doing and where you are within that context. So as I said, the object is to first identify the trauma, and then we can go on to learn the skills that you didn't learn in childhood to heal the trauma and get it out of your way so that your real self can come forward and have more authority day in and day out, your deeper knowingness. And you don't have to work it. It'll definitely happen, I promise you. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to take you through a long guided meditation. And what you're going to do is we're going to go back into this guided meditation 7 or 8 times. So I'm going to take you through a guided meditation. You're going to go to a certain stage in it. We're going to ask some questions. You're going to get some answers in that guided meditation. And then I'm going to have you open your eyes and write down those answers. Then we'll go back into the guided meditation, do another set of questions. You'll come back and you'll write down those answers. And when we're finished, by the time we're finished, we'll have a very distinct picture that will be infinitely useful to you of your processes, what belief systems are running you, and where your reactivity tends to take you, and what the causes of it are. There's no therapy here involved. That's the closest we get to going back into your childhood. There's no therapy in these classes. It's self-mastery, not therapy. It's you learning what you need to do to be your own coach and counselor. So this will give you the areas to focus on, and then you'll start learning the techniques to deal with what you're going to learn today. Okay, so those of you in the audience, put down your notebooks for the moment. Those of you at home, put down your notebooks. If you're taking notes, get comfortable. Get in a comfortable place. Keep your notebook right next to you. Have a pen next to you. And be ready to just follow my instructions very carefully and listen to me very carefully as we go through this meditation and the questions we're going to be looking for answers to. Okay? So get yourself comfortable. Turn off the machine if you need for a moment, if you're those of you at home, and then come back and we'll get going. So those of you in the audience, put down your notebooks, put down your pens, get comfortable in your seats, close your eyes. And those of you at home, do the same. Put down your notebooks and pen, find a comfortable seat, have the pencil and notebook near you. If you need to turn off the machine for the moment while you find a comfortable seat, do that, and then come back and we'll resume. Let's begin now. Close your eyes, get comfortable, close your eyes. Be aware of your breath for a moment. Where your seat in the chair, okay? And now I want you to get in touch with some pain in your life, something that creates fear for you, anxiety, anger, some emotional trauma that's upsetting to you, that's painful to you or upsetting. It can be something that's recent, experience you've had recently that's really troubled you, or it can be something that's repetitive through your life. You can think of a situation where you just automatically go into some kind of painful reactiveness. So whatever that is, anxiety about money, relationship, being treated in a certain way historically, go there. Just let yourself feel, let that feeling come forward. Don't block it out. Just let it come forward for you. Right, good. Good. Let it come forward. Just let yourself feel it. Now I want you to feel where it is in your body, where that tension is in your body, where the most stress is for that particular pain you're feeling or anxiety in your body, that dis-ease. Be aware of the shape it takes and the form it has in your body. Good. Now I want you to see what words this pain in your body wants to express. If it could say anything about what it's feeling, what's bothering it, what its conditions are. Maybe it's just leave me alone or get out of here or whatever it is. I can't stand it, I hate it. Whatever it's going to say, let that come forward for you. Excellent. Let it come forward. Trust what comes forward. Good. Excellent. Excellent. Now, be aware of the sound this disorder, this pain, this anxiety wants to make. Whatever it might be, oh, whatever it is. Be aware of that sound it wants to make. And, if you're at home, at privacy of your home, and you want to just utter that sound, fine. Those of you in the class can just be aware of it. Very good. So now we're going to do something where you're going to listen to the sound, you're going to feel the pain, you're going to know those words in your head, you're going to take that whole package, and you're going to take that package as if it's a railroad train. And we're going to ride this railroad train back into your past, back into your childhood. I want to see if you can ride it back into your childhood, this feeling, this ideas, this pain, this noise. So ideally sometime between the age of 1 and 5, where you see yourself in a situation that's really tense and where you want to be expressing this. And just trust what comes up. Just trust what comes up. And if you find yourself a little older than 5, teenage years, see if you can go back. Just be patient with it. See if you can go back a little early. If you can't, you can't. If you find yourself in a different traumatic experience that this is recalling, but it's not quite the same noise you want to make, it's a different sensibility, but it's definitely traumatic, that's fine. Just be there. Just be aware of the situation. Let the situation come forward and be aware of it. Take your time. Trust what comes forward. Trust what you see. Okay, so now just check out the situation, okay? Check out what's going on. And going forward now, I'm going to be talking to the little boy or the little girl who's listening, the little girl, the little boy who's having this experience as if we're in present time. We're right back in that time, and I'm there, and we're going to be I'm going to be asking some questions of the little boy and the little girl, okay? Okay, good, okay. So, hi. The first thing I'd like to ask you is, where's your mommy? Take a look at where your mommy is in this situation. Is she close by? Is she not there? And I want to ask you something now about your mommy. While you're feeling this pain and this anxiety, what are you concluding about your mommy? What are you concluding about your mommy? What are you concluding about the kind of person she is? What are you concluding about how she is with you? Does she love you? Does she like you? How does she behave with you? What are you concluding about how she usually treats you? What are you concluding about your mommy in relationship to herself? Does she like herself, not like herself, confident, scared? How is she with herself, about herself? What are you including about her in the world with other people? What are you concluding about her with your father, with your brothers or sisters if you have them? So just keep asking yourself, what am I concluding about my mom? What else am I concluding? What else am I concluding? What am I concluding about her with me, about who she is, how she is with me, how she is with the world, how she is with herself, how she is with my dad, how she is with my siblings? Does she favor one over me? Do I get the attention? Just want to be aware and trust the little child, trust yourself, even though you're a little child. And if some thoughts come from the future, awarenesses of her or past awarenesses of her, it's okay. Just be aware of those as well. Take your time. What are you concluding? So, good. Now, what I'd like you to do is open your eyes, take a piece of paper, write down "my mom" as your headline, and write down all the conclusions you've had about your mom. You can pause the camera, pause the DVD at home while you do this, and we'll come back, turn it back on when you're ready.
Coming up now, Jay guides you through the next important steps in understanding your development process and yourself, as well as the patterns and beliefs that shaped you.
Okay, now that you've finished writing that list, put your pen and pad down again, close your eyes, and go back into that same situation, that same traumatized situation from childhood, and that same pain. That same situation, that same pain. Just let yourself feel it, let it come forward again. Good. So now I want you to look at your father. Look at where your father is. Is he there? Is he at home? Is he working? Is he in the house? Is he not even living with you? Whatever the situation is, look at where your father is relative to this situation. And again, I just want to talk to the little girl and the little boy and ask you, sweetheart, what are you concluding about your dad? What are you concluding about your father? What are you concluding about how he treats you? Does he love you? Does he like you? Is he erratic with you? Is he dependable, supportive, critical? And what are you concluding about how he is with himself? What kind of person is he in the world? What kind of person is he with your mother? What kind of person is he with your siblings if you have them? So just keep asking yourself over and over again, what else am I concluding about my dad? What else? What else? Take time with this. What else? And just remember what you're concluding about how he is in the world, about how he treats you, how he treats mom, how he is with himself. Is he confident, not confident? Does he like himself? Does he have issues with himself? Whatever is coming forward, and trust what comes forward. And if stuff filters in from later ages, just note it. Okay? Take all the time you need with this. And when you think you've got all your list ready, what you're going to do is open your eyes, create a sheet of paper called Dad, or same piece of paper, and write down what you concluded about Dad. So just take your time. What else are you concluding? What else are you concluding? What else are you concluding? Don't hurry it. Okay, if you haven't already opened your eyes, you might want to consider doing it now. Several number of minutes have gone by. And write down what you received by way of answers. Turn off the DVD while you do so if you feel comfortable doing that. Very good. So now put your notebooks down again, close your eyes again, and go back to that picture. Go back to that scene, that situation in your childhood when you felt so distressed. And we now have a picture of your mom and your dad. So I want to ask little you, as you feel these feelings, I want to ask little you, what are you concluding about yourself? What are you concluding about the kind of little girl or little boy you are? Are you a good boy, a bad boy, good girl, bad girl? Are you good enough? Is there something wrong with you? Some way you're not right? Are you wonderful? Something you're not doing right? Keep asking yourself, what else am I concluding about myself? What kind of person am I in the world? What kind of person am I? What am I concluding about my little self? And note the positive as well as the negative. And just keep asking yourself, what am I concluding about myself? I'm adequate, I'm not adequate. I'm strong, I'm weak. I'm smart, I'm not smart enough. And take your time. And whenever you're ready, whenever you feel you're finished, just open your eyes, write down myself, and write down all your conclusions. And if you at home, feel free to pause the DVD while you do so. Okay, very good. So now we're gonna go back in for the fourth question. Close your eyes again. Go back to the painful situation. So here you are. You've got a sense of yourself, your strengths, your inadequacies. What the situation with your mom and your pop. And I'm talking again to the little girls and the little boys. So what are you concluding now about the world you're in? What are you concluding about the very nature of existence and this world you find yourself in? You're a little kid, you're in this world. You know, what are you concluding about this world? Is it safe? Does it help you? Is it dangerous? Does it support you? Does it scare you? Is it a scary world? Is it a loving world? Is it a confusing world? Troubling world? What kind of world? What kind of life? What kind of existence are you finding yourself in? What are the conclusions you're making about the world and the very nature of your own existence in it? And again, just keep asking yourself, what am I concluding? What else am I concluding? What else am I concluding about the nature of the world I'm in? What else? And trust the answers you're getting. What else? For those in the class, whenever you're ready now, open your eyes and write down the conclusions under the world, the headline, the world. Okay, very good. So we're going to go back in again. We're going to go back to that same situation. So close your eyes, put down your pen and pencil, close your eyes. Let yourself drift back into that situation. And really look at it now. Really, really get there and feel it. Here you are, you're a little kid, and you're in this world. And you already get a sense of this world. It's got its problems. It's got issues. It can be painful. You're in pain right now. You've got a sense about yourself and your strengths and your weaknesses and your sense of the situation you're dealing with, not just today, but day in and day out with your mom and dad, because you've got a sense of what they are and how they're going to behave towards you. So here you are, and this is your life, and this is what you're feeling. So now look at how you're going to handle this. What are you concluding about how you're going to handle the situation you find yourself in? Not just now, but the whole big picture of this world you're in. What are you going to do? You're going to go hide out in your room and just avoid them, avoid the situation? You're going to shut up and not say anything, stuff your feelings down? Is that going to be the safest thing to do? You're going to have to scream at them and scream at the situation, have a temper tantrum. You can do another temper tantrum tomorrow. You're going to try to be a good girl, a good boy, and get approval. What are you going to do? Go play with your toys and be in fantasy land, or just hang out with a few friends? You know, think of your options and think of what you're actually doing day in and day out when you're feeling these bad feelings and when you're dealing with any difficult situation that may come up, or the way mom and dad may treat you, or your siblings may treat you, or what you're going to do about the whole bigger picture, school, life, kids, the world you feel yourself in. What are you doing? How are you handling that? So again, just pay attention to asking yourself the question, how am I going to handle this? What else am I concluding about how I should handle this? What else am I concluding about how I could handle this? How am I going to cope with this? Just take up all the time you need. Keep answering those questions. Okay, so take your time. If you're ready to open your eyes, and those of you in the class here, you know, as soon as you're ready to open your eyes, and what you're going to write down this time as your headline is my fix, F-I-X, my fix, how I'm going to handle this thing, it's my fix. And you're going to write down all the conclusions you made about what behaviors you're going to do and handle the situation. From the adult mind, what behaviors you did do. Child mind, what behaviors you're concluding, this is my way to handle this. It may not be perfect, but it's the way I'm going to handle it. Best I can do. Just make that list. Those at home, again, feel free to turn off their DVDs while they do this.
Coming up now, Jay guides you through the final steps of putting together the big picture of self-understanding.
Okay, very good. So now we're going to go in and do something a little bit different. We've got all our questions answered, but we're going to go and do something a little bit different. So close your eyes and go back to that situation. Go back to the place where you're feeling that trauma, that discomfort, and with all the awarenesses you have of here's how the world is, here's the dilemma of your world, here's the dilemma of your situation, your conclusions about yourself, the family situation, etc. So just be there with that. Good, okay. So now we're going to shift focus to adult you, right? Stay in the room, we stay in that room. I want you to have the experience of seeing your adult self, yourself now, walk into that same room and look at yourself as a little girl or a little boy. Look at the child, you. Be aware of how you feel towards the child, you. If you're feeling some compassion and empathy, I want you to walk over to that child, and I want you to embrace the child in any way that feels right for you and the child. Comfort the child. And I want you to start telling the child, you can say it aloud, or you can say it to yourself. But I want you to look at that child and say all the good things you see about them while you're comforting them and reassuring them, while you're comforting her or him or reassuring him or her. You're so smart. You're intelligent. You've got such wonderful life force. I see your sweetness. I see your innocence. Just keep asking yourself, what else am I concluding about this child that it's not concluding about itself? What are the other good qualities I see in this child? I can tell this child, this is what I see you are. Loving, caring, whatever those qualities you see. Just trust what comes forward and remember what you're saying. Say it to the child. And if some of you are having a negative reaction to the child, I want you to go back and watch this DVD after you watch the class and do the exercises in the emotional mastery class. But the overwhelming majority of you, enormous majority of you, will have good, compassionate feelings towards this child. Take your time. Okay, now or when you're ready, for those at home, when you're ready, come back into the room. And I want you to write down a headline that says, "My child's gold," G-O-L-D, "My child's gold," and put a colon next to it, and write "the real me." My child's gold, the real me. And I want you to make a list, everything you wrote down, the positive qualities, the good qualities you saw about the child, who is, of course, you. The good, authentic you qualities that you saw. Again, pause the DVD for those of you at home. Now that you're back, now you finish that list one last time. I want you to go back into that scene where you're holding the child. See yourself holding the child. Good. Excellent. Just be there with the child. And keeping your eyes closed now, I want you to come into the present. Bring the child right into this room now, here, right into the space you are at home, with you, still embracing it. I want you to now tell the child that you're here, you understand, you have a different picture, you have a different understanding, and that you as an adult are going to make different conclusions about how to protect the child, how to deal with life. Not necessarily the fight or flight conclusions the child made, but you're going to help the child with adult ways, because you're going to learn adult ways to deal with situations that are not just fight or flight and reactive. Just assure the child that you see them, you understand them, you feel for them, you see who they really are, you care about them, you care about him. Just assure the child you care about him or her, you see him or her clearly. That you're there to support him or her. And whatever else comes to mind by way of comforting the child. And it's not unlikely the child will say, this is too new, I'm unfamiliar with this, I don't trust it. And you just say, it's okay, give me some time. I'm developing a new perspective on myself, on the world, and new tools, so I won't just do fight or flight, so we feel more competent in the world. Things are going to get safer and better for you. Take whatever time you need with that. Very good. So good. Okay, now everybody open their eyes, come back into the room. Be aware of the room, be aware of what you're feeling now. Excellent, good. So, let's look at what we've got here. Let's look at what we've just experienced. So who's willing to share, who's in the room with me is willing to share the nature of what they experienced? And remember, this is the class, it's not group therapy, so you don't have to reveal intimate details unless you want to. You be as open as you want to be. The purpose here, what I'm trying to get to, is an idea of just so people can have a sense of what other people experience by the nature of doing this, just doing the exercise. So who would be willing to do it? Raise your hand, okay?
Okay. You say the nature of the experience. What do you mean exactly?
Well, what'd you get going back into childhood, seeing that? What'd you learn? What'd you experience? Did it shift your perspective? Anything you can tell me?
I went back to a family scene where the whole family was gathered for dinner, which is interesting because we always had to have dinner together. And I experienced feeling misunderstood, left out, and I had to be quiet all the time, so repressed and suppressed. And then when the adult came in to be with that child, I was able to hold her, and it was like the child felt seen and heard. I was sending her compassion, understanding, and that it's okay to be herself. She felt as a child that she was not able to be bright and artistic and talented, that was not okay. Her parents had a different vision for her. So as an adult, the vision was supported of what she felt. So that was really interesting, that the child felt really safe and loved, like it was okay to be her. So,
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
yeah.
Yeah, nice. Good experience, yeah. So, have you had that, any other experiences that give you that same kind of clarity about the issues?
I think the biggest issue as a child was not being seen or heard, which went into personal relationships with men for me currently, and that as a child there was this a lower status. I'm female, and I was raised with two older brothers. I was able to observe that dynamic, how my mother always put men on a pedestal, and then my oldest brother was always listened to and supported, and then I felt like this kid behind a glass, in a bubble. And so when the older adult came in, the higher me, she was able to acknowledge that that's not you, that's their stuff.
Right,
And
cool.
that you are on the same level, you're just as everything, there's equality if
Cool.
you choose it.
Yeah, you shift to your more knowing self rather than the child traumatized self. Excellent, wonderful, excellent, good experience.
Jay now describes in detail how to practically use the information gathered to make significant changes in your life for the better.
So let me give everybody, including people watching the DVD, let me give you an overall sense of the meaning of this and how to use it and how we're going to use it. You know, in the child development dynamic, there are two things you learn from the parents, and you learn in two ways. One, you learn as role models. You know, they do this, mom does this, and so that gets programmed in the child. That's one of the programs a child might run on. So if the mother's an avoider, the child may become an avoider because that's been modeled to them. The other thing is that the child may make somewhat separate conclusions based on the nature of the dynamic, the family dynamic. But the family dynamic sets you up in a certain kind of way because it's the day-to-day experience. And, you know, when we think of trauma and we think you get in shape, we think we have one big trauma in life, some horrible thing happened in childhood, you know, sudden death, physical accidents, child incest or something like that, which is profoundly traumatic. And yet, for most of us, the real trauma is a day-to-day. It's like a Chinese water drip thing. It's like the behavior pattern here, the behavior pattern here shuts you down here. You're not allowed to go there. And it's cumulative. And then at the same time, you're learning, the child is learning the behavior patterns of the parents who've been through the same process as their child, have not healed all their mechanisms, are still running on their reactive states, a sliding scale state. And so those become, oh, maybe that's how I'm supposed to be, and you get programmed into it. So the child is absorbing this. So knowing that situation is important because once you know the situation, you can identify current situations that look the same to you, that smell the same, that have the same sensibilities, the same kind of personality patterns and reactive patterns. So, as I said, this is not therapy. This is a matter of pattern recognition in an adult way. So you don't have to go back and look at it over and over again. We just have to look at what's still resonant in your life right now, still happening in your life, which we're going to do more concretely in just a couple of minutes. So the parents set up the thing, and the child begins to develop belief systems very early. We really make conclusions very early on. Some of them absorb from the parents. We get conclusions about the parents. We make conclusions about ourselves that are very profound, awesomely profound, because a conclusion is a prism in which you look through the world. It's a belief system. And you carry that belief system into every situation. So whenever you walk into a room, you're walking into a room with a combination of your reactive patterns, so stuff's going to trigger you, your conclusions about what the world is about and who you are about it, which you may even be in resistance to or acceptance of, and a whole behavior pattern, the fix, the coping mechanisms that you've used. In this case, we've now learned something about the dynamic that's going to be useful. We've learned the negative conclusions that are still harboring with us, the negative conclusions about ourselves, the negative conclusions about life, right, that a child made, and the little child fixes, the little child, fight or flight fixes that the child might have made. So what does that mean for the adult, right? It means the most important thing at this point is to assess what's still running us. So I want everybody to take a look at their notes now. I want you to look down at the family patterns, take some time with this, and see if there's anybody in your life. Look at your mother's patterns, look at your father's patterns, and see if there's anybody in your life or close to you have those similar patterns, basically towards themselves, towards you, and then go down through your list of conclusions about yourself and put a check next to the conclusions about yourself that you still believe, that you still think are real. And then I want you to do the same thing about the world. Look at the world and your conclusions about the world and put a check mark next to anything that you think is still a belief that you have. You believe the world is not a supportive place. You believe it's troublesome. Whatever it is, it's a negative conclusion about the world and the nature of the world and the nature of life itself. Put a check mark next to that. And then finally, go look at your list of your fixes, right? Your behavior pattern, and put a checklist next to anything that you see yourself doing reactively or as a habitually by way of dealing with situations in your life. You're still a fighter or flighter. Somebody says something nasty, and you were a flighter. You move away, you just back off, or you come at them super hard. You're a fighter. Just look at whatever situations you can identify and check those off, because this is very important material for you to do. So take a few minutes now and do that. Okay, very good. So by show of hands, how many in the class found that you've got stuff still going on like your childhood? Oh, looks like the whole class. Such a... and the cameraman. You're in good company because this is universally true. There's very few of us who are so awake and so well trained in human relationships that endlessly, the Ram Dass line, every time I think I'm enlightened or healed, I go home to my family. So we just have these patterns. They're locked in the machine. So the patterning now is running us at any given moment when we least expect it. And our job is not to go into a place about judgmentality about it anymore. Our job now, going forward, if we're going to be adults and masters of our life, is to say, okay, I got this pattern, right? I got this pattern from childhood. I was an innocent little kid. I'm going to focus on that little gold kid with all that gold who's just hurting because he or she didn't have better tools. That uncomfort and that hurt still carries forward to today whenever I'm in a situation that seems like overwhelming. And then I go into these behavior patterns, and then I get on my own case about getting on the behavior pattern. Why didn't I do better? And something's wrong with me, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm in this cycle. So the idea here is we're going to break the cycle. And we're going to break the cycle by focusing on just those things that don't work for you anymore, right? All these reactive patterns, but we're going to do it from a mindset of what we discovered and what I said in the orientation class, which is that the child is innocent, the child is gold, your true self is phenomenal, don't worry about it, just get your trauma out of the way, you're phenomenal. You just have to start experience that part of you that's really loving and grace and smart and wise and fun and all those good things and competent, etc. So the real clue here then is to be very aware of not limiting yourself by saying, I'm not good enough, I'm going to keep falling off the wagon, this can't be fixed, this is just me, I'm stuck here, because you're not stuck here. So the homework then is for you to keep a journal, a specific kind of journal. And before I tell you about the nature journal, let me just say this about any homework I may suggest to you. I'm not the teacher who's grading you A, B, C, D. You're not going to fail the course and be thrown out of school. This is a course you're giving yourself, and I've encouraged you to green light, because you want to change the patterns, and it takes some application and time and thought and effort to do it. And we're going to be learning in these classes a lot of different methods and techniques to mastering the machine and learning adult skills for dealing with situations. And I promise you, if you do it, you're going to change a lot and be more content. However, it requires a level of you willing to say, I'm really going to do this. I'm going to make it fun. It's going to be an adventure for me. And one of the things I more strongly encourage people to do is to keep the journal, because it's so powerful to assess this. So how do you keep the journal? The best way to keep the journal is to do it every day. Do it in the evening, at the end of the day, do it the next morning, reviewing the previous day. And what you're going to look at in this journal is your behavior patterns from the previous day and those things where you went into reactivity. And if you can't do it every day, see if you can do it every couple of days. Some people do it in their minds. It's far better to write down the conclusions, because you're activating anything you write down, you're activating your observer self. So it's a much better process to do it that way.
Jay now continues with explaining the process of turning your insights about your patterns and coping mechanisms into actionable changes in your life and mind.
So what exactly are you going to look at for your journal? Well, first is you're going to look at anything you had reactivity to in the course of the day, where you found yourself in a reactive pattern. Somebody said something wrong, you went away, you got angry, whatever it was, you went into a pattern. So when you look at this, you want to see what the situation was that resembled the childhood situation, the larger childhood matrix. What qualities of the people you were interacting with or the situation you were dealing with reminded you of something in childhood, something of that childhood pattern, sort of replicating that tension. Then you want to look at how you behaved. What was your behavior pattern in that? So, and look at your list of things that are still active. Did you activate? Did you do one of your fight or flight patterns? Whatever it is you wrote down as your basic patterns for dealing with difficult situations, you want to see if that machine inside you got you doing that pattern. So you're observing the pattern. And then you want to also look at what conclusions were up for you when you were doing this. What conclusions about the world? Did this reaffirm your conclusion that the world is a sucky place or a dangerous place or, never as peaceful? Whatever it was, whatever negative conclusions, see what might have been operating for you in that moment, what your thoughts were, and write that down. And then also look at what conclusions you drew about yourself. Now, one of the things about conclusions about themselves is sometimes hard in the moment to say, I felt bad because I felt like I was less than, or I felt I was not good enough, and I don't like feeling not good enough. Some of us are honest enough. We admit that to ourselves. Others block it. But if you go into a reactive pattern with anyone, it's because you've already got that conclusion about yourself wedded into your brain, and you just don't want to deal with it. If you were completely new, if you had no conclusions about yourself, that there's something amiss with you in any way, if you were just completely self-confident, completely self-aware, when somebody did something grievous or stupid or offensive or aggressive with you, you would just look at them and say, you're really nuts, or go get yourself a therapist, or get your stuff together. All the stuff you couldn't do as a child. To your parents, you might say as an adult to this person. But the reason we go into reactivity is because it's triggering something in us that we think we own. Something from that childhood conclusion, and we don't want to hear that about ourselves. See if you can examine your way through that issue while you're looking at your conclusions about yourself that might have been activated. Okay? So you've got all this in front of you. What does it mean? Well, by the fourth or fifth time you've written something down where you've been reactive, you're going to start feeling differently about it. You're going to start seeing yourself when you get situations come up as, wait a minute, you'll be more detached. You won't be so reactive. You'll have time and a pause to be able to step back and say, I'm going to do this a little bit differently. And in this class and in this course, you're going to learn a lot of techniques to do this differently. Particularly, you're going to learn a lot of ways to deal with other people differently. So this is going to be good for you to be able to observe. And the benefits of observing is whenever you strengthen your observer self, and again, you strengthen it more by writing it down. Whenever you strengthen your observer self, you're getting closer and closer to your true self, your authentic self. Observer self is the healthy space between your reactive self and your real self. It's the doorway to it. There's tremendous value in this exercise. Now, one of the things that's going to happen as you write in this exercise is you're going to start faulting yourself because your critical mind, which we're going to deal with in the next class, your critical mind is going to say, oh, I'm not good enough, and I never get it right, and look, I've made the same mistake now 4 times in a row, even though I'm observing it. That voice is something that you've got to just not listen to when it's coming up. You are an innocent person. You've got a machine that's been misprogrammed. That little kid, that loving little kid with all that gold, got mal-educated, drew wrong conclusions. Those conclusions come up in your head. You think it's you telling yourself you're not good enough. It's just a program in your head. It's not the real you. And you've got to start getting some distance from that. So whenever you think this is happening, that you've made the same reactive pattern a few times, just say to yourself, I'm learning to ride a very difficult bicycle, and I fell off the bicycle. That's it. It's nothing that you need to put a lot of heavy weight on. And forgive yourself for making judgments about yourself. As time goes on in this course, you'll be able to see much more clearly how these judgments you have on yourself, they're only relevant in their energy field, but they're not the truth about you or about the situation. So give yourself some space to the adventure of being in life, practicing getting it right rather than practicing making the same program mistake over and over again without drama. Just learn to do that. After you've identified the negatives, see if you can identify the successes. See if you can note for yourself those places and those situations in which you actually didn't go into reactivity, where the program wasn't running you, which you handled in a different kind of way than you might have as a little kid, where you didn't go fight or flight in some manner. And write those down. That's really important. And when you write them down, stroke yourself. Give yourself a stroke. Tell yourself you did good. One of the issues we have with the way our brains are conditioned in this culture and in childhood is that we find the negative about ourselves and gives ourselves a lot of the negative. We tend to do it with others. And we don't find the positive and give ourselves that reality. And it's important because you're programming a machine. So it's not only more true to notice those good qualities, those gold qualities about yourself that were evident that day, but it's also important because it starts reprogramming the machine. Once you neutralize the machine, then you go into a place where you don't have to do it anymore. You're just at peace with yourself, and you don't have to be stroking yourself. But it's very important to give yourself, to break the old habits of only identifying yourself in a negative way or in an overly blown, egotistic way, I'm the greatest, and just look at your really good qualities that you would honor in another person, the kinds of things that you honor in other people where you see that being expressed in yourself.
In the final portion of the class, Jay answers the questions that tend to come up most frequently about the pattern recognition process.
Okay, so that's pretty much the class. I want to ask people, what questions you have here, and I'll answer those. I want to make a suggestion that other than the journal, you write down the process in which I took you and the questions I asked, that whole process, and we're putting it up on the screen behind me for you to see. You can pause the DVD and write it down. And this is very valuable process to share and to take those you're closest with through. Share it with your best friends, share it with your partner, business partner, marital or relational partner. You want to be able to have them know about what your patterns are so they don't take them personally, that this is just you and say you're working on it. And it's really valuable for you to know what their patterns are and for them to know what their patterns are so you don't take their patterns personally. And when we do the later classes in relationships, this will be really relevant because we're going to be adding a lot more texture and tools to your understanding of how to be in relationship. So, okay, I'm ready for questions.
My question is, okay, if a person has been living in many different situations and the trauma spread over all childhood, living with different people and different sets of parents and grandparents, so there were different relations with each person. It's not just one incident. I mean, in this example, we just took one incident. How does a person take the whole life of childhood that has been spent with many different people and then find all the patterns? Do we have to do the same process over and over and over and over and over and over and over again with each person and each thing?
Okay. So that's a great question. Most people have multiple patterns, and patterns will change at the time of their life. Some of their tools will differ, or they'll develop a full set of fight or flight tools that may get triggered in different situations. So the value of the process, right, the value of what I'm teaching you here is that as you make progress in any one area, you start making progress in all areas. So if you take your list of things from this exercise and you say, these are the things that are still absolutely current in my life that I'm still doing. I still hold this thought forms, I'm still reactive this way, I still have this fix, this coping mechanism, fight or flight coping mechanism, I can see where I do this, right? And you just do the journaling and focus on those things, right? As they heal, as you get them out of the way, you'll have a lot more clarity about the stuff that you're not dealing with yet. As you get clarity on them and you get healthier and stronger, and as you strengthen your observer self, you'll be able to have much more detachment from the other reactive patterns as they come up. And they'll emerge. You'll see other reactive patterns. And then you can just say, okay, I've got this other reactive pattern. Let me work on that the same way. Because the reactive pattern, the behavior pattern, and the reactive pattern, you may flash about, oh, that reminds me of this other situation. I didn't write that day. But the conclusions about yourself and about the world are likely to be the same. So you can own them. And whatever the behavior pattern is, the fight or flight behavior pattern that's manifesting at that time, it doesn't matter. The point is that you're going to be learning to not do that behavior pattern. You're going to be getting more confidence as you learn more skills. And even if you didn't have any more classes and get any more skills, just observing it and telling yourself, what else can I do differently here other than run away or fight? What's a different way I can handle this situation that doesn't emulate my childhood pattern? So you gain from that. Okay, so we've concluded this class in which we've identified our patterns. So all the rest of the classes are going to deal with tools to strengthen yourself, tools of life mastery. Remember, we're going to deal with emotional mastery. We're going to deal with mind mastery. We're going to deal with financial mastery. We're going to deal with relationship mastery. And we're going to deal with human communications mastery. Our next class will deal with emotional mastery. And I want to remind everybody that the two books that I consider required reading for the course are Conscious Loving by Gay and Catherine Hendricks and Nonviolent Communications by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. So good, till next time, enjoy.
If you are interested in an appointment with Jay, you can email him at jlevincoaching@gmail.com or contact him directly at jlevin.com. The following are testimonials from students who completed Jay Levin's course on Life Mastery Basics.
Hi, my name is Mike, and I'm a cameraman, and I am sitting here in front of you because on my first day coming in to film Jay, I was very surprised to be a part of what was happening. I was not expecting the shoot that I had walked in on. And after filming Jay for a day, I realized that what he was talking about had been something that I had maybe been searching for a long time. And was very surprised and felt very excited that what I had walked in on and became a part of was something that I would offer up to my family and friends and even my peers. I'm 28 years old, and the first thought that came to my mind was how my buddies could use this skill set to improve and better their own lives. So as I was thinking, standing behind the camera, I spoke up to Jay and felt, I was so excited about what he was talking about that he decided to put me in front to give a small testimonial because I really felt it was necessary to let the audience know how important and groundbreaking these life skills are. Just sit back for a moment and think about your own life and your relationships. And I think what Jay is touching upon is very much the essence of community and family and friendship, and I would highly recommend it to anyone.
One of the things about this course is that it's called Basics of Life Mastery. And I think one of the things that course provides is giving practical tools that can be applied in real life situations so that we can move out of sort of the stance self, move out of the traumatized self, and really make deliberate progress and concrete progress. So I think the tools are one of the most important things, that we're actually learning skills, sets to work with another human being, to actually live and come from a very creative way and fun way of living in life. It's not like a chore. It really makes it more of this engaged way of being in the world. I think the course is extremely valuable no matter whether someone feels extremely skilled in this kind of work. I think it's still, there's always something to be learned, because the moment we think that we've mastered it, we stop learning, we stop growing, and there's always, I think, room to grow. I would say nonviolent communication and also the class on finances and relationships, those are probably the most valuable for me. And learning how to just be with a human being more on a really authentic, open, sharing level where it's very, very connected. No hiding, no gaming, really one person coming to another from the soul level.
Yes, I am feeling some shifts, more shifts of connection with people, family members. I've noticed myself be a bit more empathic than usual, than my usual stance. So I've done a little bit less of that in the last couple of days. I'm a bit more empathic, more communicating. And also I'm noticing a lot more natural bubbling of joy that's coming forward. Well, I found the course meaningful personally, first of all, in the explanation of how we as humans develop our trauma self and how we act from this trauma self. I found that I have a deeper understanding of how I'm acting and reacting, so I find that tremendously valuable. Another thing that's been clearer is how I am in relationships in terms of codependency, i.e., am I telling the truth and am I backing myself up and holding my own when I'm in relations with people? So that's coming up for heightened awareness. Another thing that's coming up from the course is the understanding that the frustration I was feeling in the past few months is me having a very profound need to express myself in many areas that I haven't been very internal.
The things that I've learned in this course that are already affecting my life are as follows. The value of the relationship, the value of the non-violent communication, honoring myself more and realizing that I don't have to commit a codependent dance with people, that just reaffirming things that I already knew and anchoring in, hopefully, at least the foundation for nonviolent communication, so I don't get into, aggressive arguments with people anymore. And I'd like to do a couple of the courses again, a couple of the sessions again, like relationships and the nonviolent again, and also the self-nurturing. I'd like to do that. I would say whether you've done a lot of work on yourself or whether you've done almost no work on yourself, this is a good point to stop and take a look at how you relate to yourself, how you relate to others, how you walk through your day-to-day life, whether you go with blinders on or whether you have a full 360-degree view. I would say that this is a key mastery to starting that journey and continuing forward so you can be your full potential. I would say that that's a key point. And if you don't want to, no one's going to hold anything up to you and push you. You have to take the first step yourself.